Hello. 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 Huh? Hmm.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Okay, thank you. So, very good afternoon to you all. I'm Dr. Paramita Ghosh, IQAC Coordinator, Maynaguri College. I extend a hearty welcome to you all on this third lecture of this lecture series at national level titled Status of Women in the Indian Society Changing Mindsets. This lecture series is organized by Women's Cell and Prevention of Sexual Harassment Cell under the aegis of IQAC Maynaguri College. Now, today we have among us Dr. Pothik Roy, Assistant Professor in English, St. Joseph's College, Darjeeling, West Bengal. And this college, it has been his alma mater for over a decade now. His research interests are gender studies, post-colonial theory, film studies, and cultural studies generally. He has many invited lectures to his credit and has extensively published in various literary and academic journals and contributed many chapters in various books that are associated with his area of interest. His doctoral thesis was on the American literary and cultural milieu in the post 9th September years, focusing specifically on the interface between trauma and the politics of commemoration. He has successfully completed two UGC-sponsored research projects, one of which was on the representation of the Darjeeling culturescape in Bengali cinema from Satyajit Roy to Anjan Datta, while the other explored select folk literature of the Rauvas of North Bengal from an ecological and gender perspective. So we have Dr. Puthik Roy as a speaker among us today. But before we proceed on with the event, with the lecture, let me invite our teacher in charge, Professor Shushmita Pandit, to say a few words of encouragement to us, to the organizers of this lecture series. Shushmita Di, are you here?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I am here. Thank you. Thank you very much, Paramita.
Okay.
As a teacher in charge of Maynaguri College, it makes me extremely proud to organize this national webinar titled Status of Women in the Indian Society Changing Mindset. Just now, what our IQSC coordinator said. We are fortunate to have some very famous names who graced our lecture series, like Honorable Vice Chancellor of Kuch Bihar, teacher in charge of PMS Mahavidyalaya Malbazar, and so many others are. And today with us, Dr. Pothik Rai, Assistant Professor in English, St. Joseph's College, Darjeeling. I would like to thank Dr. Rai on behalf of all section of Maynaguri College for accepting our invitation and speaking at this webinar. Also, I would like to thank coordinator and all members of Women Cell and Prevention of Sexual Harassment Cell along with IQC coordinator for wonderfully implementing our ideas and efforts through this webinar. So I really not want to extend my lecture because I know that all of you are here very much eager to know some valuable words from our uh, speaker, from our today's speaker. So, before saying thank you to all, thank you very much to all again to Women's Cell, Prevention of Sexual Harassment Cell, and IQAC coordinator for this lecture series. Hope it will become very successful for us and for all who are here. Thank you. Thank you very much to all of you.
Thank you so much, Shushmita Di. And
Thank
as
you,
you
madam.
always say, you are the encouragement. You are the one who encourages us always with these kinds of programs. Without you, these programs would never have been so successful. Thank you once again for always being there with us. And now let us welcome Dr. Pothik Roy, who is with us today. And now he's going to deliver his lecture. This lecture is titled Feminisms from Conceptual Formulations to Insidious Patriarchal Internalizations. So this is the topic he is going to deliver his lecture on. Welcome, Dr. Pothik Roy. So really, I'm really thankful for accepting our invitation and being here with us today. So now the platform is yours.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Am I audible?
Yes, yes, you are.
Okay. All right. Indeed, it is my privilege to be here with you all today. And at the outset, I must thank the teacher in charge of Maynaguri College for having been so welcoming, and the Women's Cell and Prevention of Sexual Harassment Cell for having me here. I would also like to thank the coordinator, IQAC of Maynaguri, Dr. Paromita Ghosh. Indeed, she is a very good friend of mine, and for me, uh, Dr. Ghosh is the face of Maynaguri in the sense, like, I don't personally know anyone else. But thank you for having me here. And I think it is quite a privilege to be here this afternoon with almost about 70 plus, students and scholars and teachers. This I would just like to share a few things, and the title has already been announced to you all, and I will take up from there. But before I start off, I'd like to say that perhaps um, a lot of these things that I will discuss today are not very new, ideas. But since I think a majority of the audience today are students, I thought that, and since they come from a mixed group, which is not necessarily literature in that sense, you see, so I thought that it would be beneficial for them to get a kind of a grounding in this basic conceptual framework, from where on I would move on to the Bollywood cinema, where I would like to take up a few songs and see how patriarchal stereotypes get embedded into the consciousness without us even realizing it, right? Means some of the songs that I will play for you all, hopefully there would be no technical glitches. But you will see that they're extremely popular songs and we keep humming them all the time, right? But despite that, the message that is there, if we break it down, you will notice that there is a very spurious message in many of them, in this so-called innocuous, innocent, melodious. And that is the reason why I would perhaps take up old Bollywood numbers, where the general kind of feeling is that these are very melodious songs, and people say that today is an age of item numbers, right? Whereas those days we had such melodious songs, people used to sing so well. Even the content, I mean, you won't get those lyrics. Those were the golden age of Hindi cinema. But then, like, if you break it up, we find that perhaps there are rings within rings, right? So, anyways, I would like to present my screen. I don't know how I will go about it. Just let me get into the present. Am I permitted to present, or is there some kind of a technical
You
thing?
are. You are permitted to
Okay.
present. Yeah.
Fine, fine. Thank you. All right, can my screen be seen?
Yes, yes, it is showing. Yes,
Yes?
it is showing now. Yeah, it is showing now.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah.
it's showing. Acha, this is just a this is just a request in case there is a technical glitch, right? If I am not audible, or if something happens,
Yeah,
please
sure,
let me know.
sure.
All right, so that I can stop and
Yeah.
redress that. Okay, so now I will start off with, you see, the title of my uh, talk today is feminisms, right? And I will justify this idea of feminisms because this is a talk that is arranged by the women's cell, and so we need to know something about feminism and the idea that feminism is never in singular, it is always in the plural. And I will come to, the first concept that I'd like to start off with is the idea of power. Okay, with the idea of power. You see, power is something that is very fluid within our social system. Okay, everything is perhaps a kind of a manifestation of the circulation of power. All right. Today, for instance, say, okay, I am giving you a kind of a lecture. I am a part of this lecture series, whereas, say, a lot of students are listening to us. Now, see, the very fact that I, because of my location, have been given the power to present, okay, centralizes me, makes me perhaps a little more powerful than people who are unable to do that. So, I mean, I'm trying to put it down to very, very brass tacks. But basically, you see, power in society operates in two ways. One is coercion, that is the brute or the repressive force. For instance, say you break the law, you go around shouting on the streets, or you break the traffic law or whatever. The police will come, catch hold of you, and put you in this jail. Okay. They may even, give you a couple of, you may have some kind of a corporal punishment. Okay. That is coercion. But you see, almost 90% of the power that operates in society is not through coercion, it is through consent. And this is a very important concept. The idea of consent, meaning you willingly agree to be dominated. Okay, this is the idea of consent. So the power that operates in society, right? Out of that, almost 90% of that operates through this idea of consent. You willingly agree to be dominated. And this is what Gramsci, the Italian theorist, called hegemony. Okay, that is the willing acceptance of domination. But you see, this acceptance of domination doesn't happen overnight. Okay. It's not as if, generally speaking, many of you may be thinking that why would I willingly accept the domination? Is actually engineered. Okay, and I use the word with complete understanding of the nuances involved. That is, how is this consent engineered? How is it that you agree to be dominated? Okay, how is it that you agree to be dominated, and perhaps you don't even realize that you have given your consent? And here, I'd like to, bring in this particular name, that is Louis Althusser, who talks about ideological apparatus of the state. Indeed, he talks about these two different, apparatus of the state. One is the repressive apparatus of the state, which relates to the first thing that I talked about, and that is coercion. Okay. The repressive apparatus of the state, like say the police, the military, okay, these are, power operates through them, but that is the repressive apparatus of the state. But this 90%, the remaining power that circulates in society by consent is something that is engineered. And that is engineered, as Althusser would tell us, through the ideological apparatus of the state. Like, say, religion. Okay. Now, all major religions of the world, whether it is Hinduism, whether it is Islam, whether it is Christianity, whether it's Judaism, all religions, they have a kind of an inbuilt ideology. They have an inbuilt ideology, and you don't even relate to that ideology as you practice that religion. All major religions of the world are male dominated. Okay. And I will give you specific instances about that. Okay, when I come to that a little later. Say education ISI. ISI means ideological apparatus of the state. Okay. There is a particular ideology which is there through education, which is passed on through education. And perhaps, I'm just giving you a tip of it. I'll come back to this again. For instance, say every time there is a change in the political dispensation of the nation, in simple words, every time there is a change in the ruling party, you will find the chapters and excluding certain chapters from history, for instance. Okay. Similarly, say the family. Okay, this whole idea of family. For instance, say, just giving you an example. One of the major tropes of the family is motherhood. Okay, you are a mother, so you should sacrifice. Okay, now this is an ideological concept. And through various means, this ideological idea of motherhood is being put into the minds of the children as they are growing up. So, similarly, legal, political, cultural, and even all these, communication aspects, like say the radio, the television, the cinema, all of these, they are different apparatus of the state through which an ideological concept is being created. For instance, you see, like on a very different note, see, the British ruled India directly for about 200 years. Okay. Now, if you count the number of Britishers in India, how many would there be? Okay, there would be what? 1 lakh, there may be 2 lakhs, whatever. That is the maximum. But look at the population of India. It would run into crores. I mean, if the Indians who really said that no, I mean, we do not want this rule, they could have physically thrown them out of India, but they did not. India remained as a British colony for 200 years. Why would such a thing happen? Despite that huge difference in the numbers. It is not just guns. How many people can the British police gun down? How many people can they do that? That is the aspect of coercion, the first way in which power operates. But no, 200 years of British rule was because the Indians consented to the British rule. They felt that perhaps at the end of the day, the British were more civilized and the British were more capable of ruling the country. You see, this is how consent, and there are many ways in which the Britishers created this consent. Okay, today, of course, I will not go into that is post-colonial, but today I will move into gender very soon. But I want this idea of consent to be very clear, that it is you give your consent to being dominated, all right? And this consent is not an innocent thing, it is actually created, all right? Now I come to this idea of binary opposition, wherein you see the way we look at the world and the way we make sense of the world around us is always in terms of, binary opposites, like say light and darkness. Now, please understand that these two are not just opposites. They are not just opposites. Power between the two. Like say light is always privileged. Okay, those of you who have read by the Bible, the first line would say, at first there was light. You see, they don't say at first there was darkness. Now you see, whenever you talk about this kind of binary oppositions, the way we make sense of the world, you will find, at least in the grouping that I have given you, the first term is privileged. It is centralized. Okay? And the second term is disempowered. Like say Europe, Africa. Okay, Europe is the land of civilization. Europe is, rationality. Europe is progress. Africa is superstition. Africa is the dark continent. All right, the dark continent. Africa is the absence of light. So you see, whenever we talk about Europe, Africa, it is not a very innocent kind of a grouping. We are talking about power. Similarly, white, black, all right, and as we will be discussing today, the male, female. So the first term is always privileged and centralized, and the second term is disempowered. It is not privileged, right? So now coming to, therefore, this is the center margin relation. Now in your own life, you can see this, okay? The center is the center, like if you can imagine a circle, for instance, the center of the circle is the center of power, okay? Now in terms of class meaning in terms of people who have a lot of money, for instance, the people who are wealthy are at the center. The people who are poor would be at the margin. In terms of caste, say, the so-called higher caste, okay, I say so-called because I do not believe in this casteist hierarchy, but the so-called higher caste are at the center, whereas the so-called, the male is at the center, because it is the male who make the rules, and they make the rules in such a way so that they remain in the center. I repeat this. Since the power is in the hands of the male, since it is a patriarchal society, what is patriarchal of the world around us, wherein women are always looked upon as powerless, they need to be protected or whatever, whereas always in the hands of the male, they will write the rules in such a way that they will continue in that state of power. So this is the center margin relationship. What say the self and the other. The male is the self and the female is the other. Okay, the other in the sense who is outside, who is in the margin. The male is the norm, the rule is the male, whereas the female is the lack or the absence. Okay, now this norm and this lack and absence, I will try to relate this to some of the stuff that I'll show you a little later. Of course, this is a little theoretical, but this is something that is very central to this whole idea. You see, whenever we talk about, say, the ways in which inequalities are perpetuated, there is always this kind of a center margin relationship. And this has led to a lot of, theoretical constructions. For instance, when we talk about Europe, Africa, that binary, that center margin, we come to post-colonial studies. When we talk about, say, heterosexual versus gay lesbians, we come to the queer theory. Similarly, when we talk about male and female binary, the center and the margin, we come to feminism or gender studies. Okay, so there are different, but basically it's very important for us to realize the center and margin. That is, where is the power located? Okay, the power is always located, for instance, say black and white. Okay, the power is located in the white. Okay, and it took a lot of time for maybe people to declare that black is beautiful, because black was always looked upon as, dark, as uncivilized, as something that was not that was not beautiful. This whole idea of beauty also is, if you realize, very culturally constructed. Okay, so I will come to this idea of beauty also a little later. I am just opening up a few things for you, and therefore the theoretical premise of feminism would be that patriarchal civilization dominates women in all fields, whether it is family, whether it is religion, whether it is public sphere, economic, social, legal, artistic. In every sphere, you will find that this domination is always there. Okay, where the male is the center, the male is the norm, the rule. Okay, the rule by which you are going to evaluate everybody else. The male is the yardstick. For instance, like if you go to the shop and you want to buy cloth, right? So what do? You use a meter scale, right? So you have 1 meter or 2 meters of cloth that you buy. So that meter scale is the yardstick. That is the norm by which you are buying. Similarly, in society, in a patriarchal, male-dominated society, you see the male becomes the norm, the yardstick, by which you measure every other thing. And of course, you measure the non-male, you see. So the female does not have an agency or an autonomy of her own. The female is the other, the non-male. Okay, she is a lack, she is an absence. Okay, now the psychological way of looking at it would be where they talk about castration complex and all that, but we won't get into that. The female is always looked upon as the other, the non-male. She doesn't have a identity of her own. Okay, now so from Greek philosophy to the Bible, to the classical mythology, to fairy tales, to, as I will show you, in films, to advertisements, everywhere. I will talk about these 4 words which are very significant in the representation of the woman in the collective unconscious. One is, they are exoticized. Exoticized means they are looked upon as something special. So basically, they are looked upon as Devi figures, the mother figure. And the moment you look upon the woman as the mother figure, she's asexual, meaning she doesn't have any sexuality. The mother is not supposed to have any sexuality. So she is the Devi figure, the goddess figure, all right, who is to be revered, who is to be worshipped. But as you worship this woman, she is also the woman who sacrifices. She is the woman who doesn't think about herself. Okay, so this is the exotic woman, and this is a part of that male fantasy. The woman is the Devi figure, or look at the second word, the woman is the harlot figure, the prostitute figure. She is eroticized, she is hypersexual, and therefore that is the other pole of the male fantasy. Either it is the Devi or it is the prostitute. The normal woman with any kind of independence, with any kind of autonomy, is totally erased in the male fantasy. So you have these 2 polar extremes, either exoticized or eroticized. Either the woman is the Devi or the woman is eroticized as the harlot, the prostitute, the hypersexual. Now, the moment the woman becomes hypersexual, okay, she is demonized. Okay, the whole idea of, say, the Kanchan Kamini. Kanchan is the wealth, and Kamini is the woman who would lead you to your downfall. Look at, say, the Bible. It is Eve who was tempted by Satan at first, and it is Eve who ultimately leads to the downfall of Adam as well. So this is the demonization. That is why you have all these vampires and things like that. The demonization of the female figure. So either the female is eroticized, or the female is exoticized, or the female is demonized, and finally, or the female is infantilized. Infantilized is a word that comes from infant, meaning babies. So the female is an infant who is unworthy of protecting her own self, who doesn't have the capacity, and therefore all decisions need to be taken for her. She is an infant, okay? And therefore, like you see, even in popular parlance, even in popular, culture, you have this whole this whole idea of calling the woman lover as baby. The moment you call someone as baby, what you are actually doing is you are taking away her agency. Agency meaning her capacity to act and think as an independent human being. Okay, the woman is a baby who is unable to take care of her own self. Therefore, she needs to be taken care of. Okay, so going back to, I just want to share this particular way in which, okay, I think we can get into this. So therefore, coming to this very crucial theoretical premise, where I would like to posit a difference between sex and gender. You see, sex is a biological or an anatomical thing. You are a male or a female because of certain body parts, basically. So sex is a biological thing. But the idea of gender is a socially or a culturally constructed thing. Meaning, you are masculine or you are feminine because society wants you to behave in a particular way. So gender is socially or culturally constructed. Masculinity is a groove. Okay, it is a kind of a, let's say, a kind of a road along which boys are supposed to travel. Femininity is another road along which women are or girls are supposed to travel. And right from your childhood, this gendering happens in ways that you do not even realize. When your elders tell you, suppose there is a brother and a sister in a household, and when your elders tell you that, tell the girl, you be home by 6 o'clock in the evening, your brother can come at 8 o'clock, doesn't matter. Now, you do not realize how this apparently innocent thing is actually a part of a larger discourse of gender. Okay. Similarly, say, when two small boys, hardly say 5 or 6 years old, suppose they are fighting with each other, and two boys, and I am sure you must have heard boys would say, "Don't cry like a girl." Now, this 6-year-old boy who is telling this to his friend doesn't realize what he's saying. Because you see, this is being passed on to him almost unconsciously, because he is inhabiting a patriarchal culture where between this binary opposition of reason and emotion, reason falls for the men. The rational is the men, emotional is the women. Therefore, it is okay for the woman to cry. The woman can cry. It is a normal thing. But for the man to cry If he cries, what happens is he moves away from the masculine path into the feminine path. So, now if you look at these binary opposites, say active and passive, all right? So active is always the male, passive is the female. Dominating is the male, timid is the female, brave is the male, fearful, female, rational, male, emotional, female, resisting, acquiescent, innovative, traditional. Now look at these binary opposites. These are the binary opposites through which gender is being constructed in society. Okay. It is being constructed in society. It is not something that is given. So therefore, you see, if a boy goes to a cinema house and if he watches a film and he feels like crying, he cannot do that. People will call him a sissy. People will, because he is not following the groove of masculinity, which he is supposed to follow. All right. The same thing would happen to a girl who is capable of taking decisions on her own, who is ready to say travel alone. I mean, these things happen nowadays, but at the same time, see, that person is going to be looked upon as a tomboy, which again is a derogatory term. It is a term which is made to put that girl into her place, and her place is the feminine. So you see, this gender, therefore, is a very socially and culturally constructed category. And therefore, female socialization and sexualization, right from childhood, she is socialized in a particular way. Okay. The girls are told by their mothers that, you go to the kitchen and do this. All right. But the same thing would not be told to the boys, perhaps. So you see, household work becomes gendered. The kitchen becomes the area of the girls, the female. So their socialization and their sexualization from childhood, that results in their looking upon themselves as feminine. So this is how gender operates. And gender, therefore, is a way in which power operates in society. This is what I am trying to put across. Now, this power, all right, this power, which is a kind predicated on the operations of gender, is something that that operates or that has operated for ages due to the concept. That is where I go back to. Okay, from your childhood, say the people in your family have asked you to do certain things, and you take it that this is how it ought to be. You do not question it. I have often asked this to some of my students, especially the first time they enter my class for this gender lectures, and I tell them, a girl gets married and goes to her husband's house. Is this a natural fact? And almost about 70 to 80%, they say yes, it's a natural fact. They do not realize it. And then the next question is, the sun rises in the east. Is that a natural fact? Okay, that is a natural fact. The sun rises in the east is a natural fact. The girl goes to her husband's house after marriage. Is it also a natural fact? Is it also a natural fact, the way the sun rises in the east? Certainly not. Then you realize that the girl going to her husband's house after marriage is a cultural or a social fact. There is nothing natural about it. It has been done for ages. Therefore, you do not question it. You give it your consent. And that is how power operates in society. This is what I was trying to put across. Now, as this happens, you see, there is this internalization of marginalization, meaning the women themselves internalize, they give consent to this gender disparity. And as they grow older, they are the people who have absorbed the patriarchal ideology, and they are the people who now start spreading the same patriarchal ideology. Okay. Now, this is the internalization. Right from childhood, the girl has been made to understand that she is in the margin. Now, as she grows up, she internalizes this in her psychology, in her own psyche, okay, that she is in the margin and she is supposed to act in a particular way. She is supposed to behave in a particular way. So, you know, she has got this training to be in the feminine groove, where she's supposed to be, if I can go back to my previous slide, she is supposed to be passive, she is supposed to be fearful, she is supposed to be timid, she is supposed to be emotional, she is supposed to be traditional, she is supposed to be homekeeping. So these are the things which she internalizes. And later on, she is the one who will ultimately, again, perpetuate means continue this patriarchal ideology through an unconscious programming. So this is an unconscious programming at her psychological level. So she initially, the victim of patriarchy, now becomes the agent of patriarchy. And therefore, this, you see, this internalization and this proliferation of gender stereotypes. Am I audible right now? Is there any problem?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Okay.
Abhishek, please mute your mic. Continue, sir.
So now, okay, fine, thank you. Now, so this theoretical premise, see, this whole idea of internalizing the patriarchal ideology, and it is being naturalized. You know, it is looked upon as something natural. Like as I just said, that the woman leaves her father's or her parents' home and goes to her husband's house after marriage. It is naturalized. Certainly, it is not the same kind of natural fact as the sun rises in the east, but you do not question it. So this subordination of women, this is carried on through cultural media like TV. You see, most of these soaps or the serials that you see would show a particular way of that sanskari bahu. Okay, the traditional wife who is going to take care of the society, for instance, at the expense of her own education. Okay, so, or even in films, books, magazines, advertisements, everywhere you will find this subordination of women. And because this is being put into the minds of the children as they grow up, you see, the boys also grow up with the feeling that they are not expected to enter the kitchen, and the girls grow up with the feeling that they are supposed to sacrifice everything, including their education, their career, their everything for the kitchen. So this lopsidedness is something that is naturalized through these media, this cultural media of TV or films or books or magazines or whatever. Okay, now so I would just like to talk about this particular book that Simone de Beauvoir, and she wrote, and it is called The Second Sex. She wrote this in the year 1949. And this is one particular line which is very important. She says one is not born, but rather becomes a woman. Please mark that word, becomes. Okay. I mean, you are not born a woman. You become a woman. How do you become? It is civilization as a whole, I mean, so it is a patriarchal civilization which ultimately goes on to produce this creature that is the woman. And the woman is supposed to follow the lines of the patriarchal ideology, and she internalizes that. Okay, she internalizes that and later on goes on to continue it. So they're inferior to men, but cultural and social practices have made women inferior. Okay, so and further the reproductive function ties women to the domestic sphere. Okay, now this is the some of the conceptual framework which I wanted to put across to you. Okay, and now the whole idea, you see, of internalization. This is something that happens through cultural media. It happens through, as I said, books that you read, through films, through all this ISA. Remember what Althusser talked about, the ideological apparatus of the state. It happens through education. I remember when I was in the school, I used to teach in a school before I got into a college long years ago. And those days in the Bengali, in Madhyamik schools, you had a text called Learning English. I don't know if they still have that. Now in class 6, in Learning English, there were small panels, all right? There were 4 panels over there. And there were 4 sentences on the, I mean, there were 4 panels on the right and there were 4 sentences on the left, and you were supposed to match them. This is, I think, for class 5 or class 6, something like that. Must have been for class 5, I think, or maybe it's class 6. But please understand how this is a very formative period of the child's life, class 5. And there you have these 4 panels, and the first one shows, for instance, a woman who is cooking. Okay. And the second shows a boy who is playing with a football outside. The space is outside, right? The third shows a small girl who is playing with a doll, but inside the house. And in the fourth, you see a man who is reading a newspaper. And on the other side, you have these 4 lines. Father is reading a newspaper, mother is cooking, and whatever, Ram, Sham, or whatever, is playing with a football, and whatever this name of the small girl is playing with a doll. So this is there on the left side, on the right side, you are supposed to match. Now, naturally, this class 5 kid is going to match those, but what is happening is that very insidiously, please refer to the title of my presentation, insidious patriarchy. Insidious means something that happens so subtly that you do not even realize what is happening. Very insidiously, the child is being made to think or being made to internalize, whether it's a boy child or a girl child, made to internalize that father would read the newspaper when mother will cook. That the small boy child will play with the football, and his, you see, football has a certain degree of aggression in it. Okay, it is a very aggressive kind of a game. So this boy child is going to go outside and play. His space is outside. This is a very important thing. But the space of the small girl child is inside. And she's going to play with the doll. And this playing with the doll is a kind of a trope. It is a metaphor for what is going to happen in future. What does a girl child do to a doll? Okay, she feeds him, she dresses him up, she gives him it a bath. Okay, so what is she doing? The word is nurturing. She is nurturing. So this is going to be her role in future. She is going to look after the family. Okay, the idea of playing with the doll in the inner space. Now, all of this, you may say that I am overreading. But all of this, is not, this is not something that is there at that, I mean, it is not there immediately in the minds of these small children. But it is being through repetition, not only through this. Look at, for instance, okay, look at when people go for the birthday of a child. If it is a girl child, they get, pink teddy bears. If it is a boy child, they get a truck along with a machine gun in it. Look at the way in which everything is gendered, and you don't even realize that you are caught up in this huge web where you feel that you are independent beings, you have agency, but you don't. Okay. And now, one of the major ways in which, since this is about changing mindsets in India, I'll come to the changing mindsets towards the end, but I would, and these are, from old Hollywood movies. It's not Hollywood, sorry, old Bollywood movies. 1958, Madhumanti. Okay. Now, look at the song. The song is a very melodious song. And as I was telling you in the beginning, that people would say that, these kind of melodious songs are not there anymore, which is fine. But look at the insidious way in which certain messages are being put across. Okay. Now, I would like to present this. Please tell me if you can see it or not. All right, can you see?
No, sir.
Huh?
Yes, little bit. Hearing.
We can hear the song, but we
Yeah, I mean, is this slide available to you? I mean, is it possible to see? Okay, okay, okay. That must be something to do with the net.
Yeah,
But this particular slide?
no, there isn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, now it is
No,
showing, I think.
yeah, slide 1.
Slide 1 is showing, yeah.
Okay, right. Thank you, thank you. Okay, see, that song is quite a popular song. Aaja de Pardesiya, Main to kab se khadi is par. So that is looked upon as one of the very melodious songs, and this is way back in 1958. Okay, this, I mean, if we talk about say 2000, even 94, I mean, from the 90s onward, it was a very rapid kind of commodification of the woman's body that you see in Bollywood films. But this certainly doesn't have that, apparently. But if you look at it, you see it has this trope of the passive, suffering female. All right. The passive and the suffering. And also the female who is spatially circumscribed. Spatially meaning in terms of space. Okay. So you have this glorification of the ideal femininity, which is passive. Okay. That is the ideal. So she is suffering and she is passive, and that is what is being glorified? The agency is in the hands of the male, because the male is the pardesi, the male is mobile. That is a very important thing. The male is mobile. The male has access to the outside world. The male has access to traveling. The male has access to, moving around. And therefore, the female is the suffering female who is waiting for the male who is able to travel around, who has access to the outside world. Okay, so this trope of the passive suffering, spatially immobile kind of a female, right, is something that comes out through this, that is the message. Now, if we look at this, and I will try to play the song. I don't know whether it's possible, but I'll try to play the song a little later. Let us just look at this. This is 62. Okay, that was in the 50s. Now look at this. See, आपकी नजरों ने समझा प्यार की काबिल मुझे. Now you see, what is happening is that, if you remember, I was talking about the norm. Now over here, you have the male judgment as the norm. Okay, the male judgment is the norm, and the vindication by the male judgment has led to her destiny. Meaning to say, she says, through this man, through his judgment, she has found her manzil. Manzil meaning her destiny. Okay, I'll just try and see if I can play this song, just to, just let me see if I can play this song. Okay, so once again, you see this whole song has. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay, I always get this feeling, that that I am talking to a blank screen. All right, so this whole idea, there is this whole idea, this trope of the court of judgment. Okay, please look at the wordings over there. It is almost as if it is a court, and there you have a male judge, and you have this female who is supplicating to the male judge. So look at, this power imbalance which is inbuilt in this song, right? So this man-woman relationship is transmuted into a verdict to be given by this superior judge, which is of course male judge, on the submissive subject. Okay, the person who is supplicating. This power imbalance. Look at that word. हाँ हमें मंजूर है आपकी ये फैसला. So I am happy with your faisala, with your decision. All right, go back again. आपकी नजरों ने समझा प्यार की काबिल मुझे. So who is at the center? Now that we know about the center margin relation, who is at the center? You have this male figure at the center. Okay, who is taking the decision? It is the male who is, setting up the norms. All right, so that is a very interesting kind of a thing. And now I'll go to the third slide, and that is even more interesting because it is, from the court of judgment, we now move to the mandir, which is the temple. Okay, so from the judge who pronounces the faisala, now you have the male subject is the devta. Tum hi meri mandir, tum hi meri puja, tum hi devta ho. So you have that religious trope over there. Okay, the mandir, the puja, the devta. And then she talks about something else as well. She says, "Koi mere aankhon se dekhe to samjhe ki tum meri kya ho." This is the internalization of that marginalization. She cannot look upon herself through her own eyes. This is the point I'm trying to make. This is this is also the gaze theory. I don't think I'm running out of time. I don't think I'll be able to talk about the gaze theory. But basically what is happening is she is not looking at herself through her own eyes, but she's saying that she is looking upon him through the eyes that society wants her to look. Okay, so that is where this male figure is being given a pedestal. Okay, so he's the devata, and this patriarchal ideology has inscribed her subjectivity. Okay, this is what Althusser would call interpolated subjectivity, meaning she is the ideology or the false consciousness acts in her in such a way that it hijacks her subjectivity. It is not possible for her to look or think beyond it. Now, I will just try and see if I can play that song for you. But I don't think that. Okay. And now I'll come to this. I don't know if you could hear the sound, but even if you saw the picturization, you will realize the kind of power imbalance that is there. And this is a man-woman relationship which is being, transmuted into a totally unbalanced kind of a relationship. Okay, but this is a very interesting song. It is from Kabhi Kabhi, where you have Amitabh Bachchan in 1976. All right, now let me see if I can play this song. And I just want to know one thing. How much time do I have? I mean, I have already overshot my time. I know that. All right, but how much time are you prepared to give me a little more so that I can wrap up?
I think, Dr. Pothikroy, this lecture is going so well. So I think you can take your time. I think all the participants will agree with us that we cannot miss out on for the slides that you are going to show us or discuss on.
Okay, fine.
So I think we have time. Please carry on.
Okay, fine. So in that case, this is of course a very popular film, and all of you know this song, but at least my students who are here, I don't think many of you would have thought of it in this way. So let us first listen to this particular part of the song, right? All right. So, very nice song. Many people know this. Almost everybody knows this song. And a lot of people, of course, would say it's a very melodious song. Indeed, I would also say it's a very melodious song. But let us look at the message that is there. All right. And that message may not be that innocent. It starts off with the denial of agency. This is something that I have been telling you throughout my lecture. The denial of agency. कभी कभी मेरे दिल में ख्याल आता है कि जैसे तुझको बनाया गया है मेरे लिए. So you don't have an autonomous, independent existence or agency. You are not an independent human being. You were created only for me, for my pleasure. कि जैसे तुझको बनाया गया है मेरे लिए. This is my first point. This denial of agency. The second point is that exoticization, right? That the woman as the exotic person. तू अब से पहले सितारों में बस रही थी कहीं. So you were in some star before you were brought down to earth for my pleasure. So once again, see the subordination of the woman, even though she is exoticized, even though she is something who has this almost fairy tale qualities of staying in the star, she is something who is, you cannot look upon her as a successful doctor. You cannot look upon her as a successful teacher. You cannot look upon her as a successful, research scientist. You cannot look upon her as anything like that. She was there in the stars and she has been brought down for my pleasure. And then see the proprietary meaning something to do with the property. Okay. The female body as the prerogative of male ownership. The male is the owner of the female body. Now please look at those sentences. It says, कभी कभी मेरे दिल में ख्याल आता है कि ये बदन, ये निगाहें मेरी अमानत है. Amanat is a very strong word. It means property. So ye badan, this body, this nigahe, okay, this looks meaning eyes. And then ye gesuo ki ghane chhaye hai meri khatir. Gesuo means hair. Then he goes on cataloging the parts of the woman. Ye hoto, ye bahe, meri amanat. This is the second time. Third time he uses the word amanat. Third or fourth time he uses the word amanat in 5 sentences. See, nigahe meri amanat. Then goes on to say ye ghani chhaye. Then he says ye bahe meri amanat. So and he repeats that. So now see, badan, nigahe, gesu, hot, bahe. These are all catalogues of the female body. You see, the male subject here refuses to accept the autonomy of the female as a complete individual. The female is there is no selfhood. You see, the female is a collection of these eroticized body parts, like the hot or the gesu or whatever, the nigahe, the badan, whatever. So what is happening is that the female, the autonomy of the female is totally curtailed. This is a girl whom we cannot, by any flight of imagination, see as a successful, independent woman who is living her life on her own terms. We do not see that. All right. Okay. And now I'll go to the next slide. And over here, by the time we have hit the 60s, okay, this was 76. Because I have to shorten my lecture, I'll go to this Mohra, very, very popular song. Everybody knows about this song, and it is quite blatantly, of course, the commodification of the women's body. Tu cheese badi hai mast mast. You see the whole idea of the cheese, which is the commodity, but not just the commodity, it's the unthinking hypersexual commodity. All right, because this commodity, this cheese, has no hosh, no consciousness. All right. But there is this Josh of Jauban, meaning to say the hypersexual kind of let's say representation of the woman. So only body and no mind. And the body that is always in a state of fevered sexual excitement. And this fevered sexual excitement is supposed to be used to satiate the male desire. Okay, so I'll just see if we can work on that clip. Okay, and therefore, and now I come to this slide, which is, you know, in that sense, the climax of that commodification. Look at the wording, "Main to tandoori murgi hu yaar, gatka le sayya alcohol se." All right. Now, this is an item number. Now, in the Hindi, you know, the filmy slang of Mumbai, item is that hypersexualized female figure. Now, I want to, you know, just a minute before I move into this, I want to talk about this idea of scopophilia, which has been talked about by Laura Mulvey, who is a film analyst, and also by John Berger. Okay, so I will talk about the theory of gaze if possible, but before that, we'll just see this, this clip, if it is possible at all, I don't know. Okay, so now this idea of this item number, okay, it is, it of course requires a totally different kind of a discussion, and there is a lot of research on that, how item numbers gradually came into the drawing room space, you see, and where children and parents are all watching the same item number together, but that is a different thing. What I would like to talk about here is a book called The Ways of Seeing by John Berger. Okay, I think I can stop sharing. Okay, so this Ways of Seeing, this is a book by John Berger. Now, this actually came out as a book in around 1973, around that time, but it was basically a BBC TV series where he talked about, where he discussed Renaissance paintings, all right, John Berger. And he talks about this visual culture where women are always objectified in these paintings as something to be looked at. That is the important thing. So the woman is always surveyed, and the surveyor is the male. So there is this, you know, this subordination, this kind of lack or removal of agency. Yes, I would like to show you this quote by Berger. Wait. I have to share first, no? Just a minute. Okay, is my screen visible?
Yes, it is visible. Yes.
Okay, this is Berger. And those of you who are interested can look up this book. It's called Ways of Seeing, where he says men look at women. Women watch themselves being looked at. This determines not only most relations between men and women, but also the relations of women to themselves. This part the relation of women to themselves, this is the internalization of the gaze. Okay, see, gaze versus look. Gaze is a political word. Gaze means there is a power relation between the person who is looking and the person who is being looked at. Look is a neutral thing. Okay, I looked at the bus which went by. But the mistress gazes at the maid servant. The maid servant does not gaze at the mistress. Do you understand? So there is a difference between this. So the same thing when it comes to gender studies, especially when it comes to the male gaze, it is the men who look at the woman. The surveyor of the woman in herself is male, the surveyed female. Meaning the woman, when she looks at herself, she is looking at herself through the eyes of the male. Thus, she turns herself into an object, and most particularly, an object of vision, a sight. And this is how I relate these item numbers, you see, where the woman, right, is rendered into an object of vision, where everybody looks at her. So, and in a later, in around that time in 1973, Laura Mulvey came up with this very path-breaking essay of hers. And this is called, stop sharing over here. And this is called Visual Pleasure and Narrative Cinema. All right. And in this particular essay, she talks about 3 ways in which the gaze is seen in cinema. You see, there are 3 kinds of gaze. That of the man behind the camera. So the gaze of the camera is there. You would notice that in most films, when the woman is being caught in the camera moves up along the body of the woman. But that is not the case when the man is shown. When the man is shown full frontal, straight. But when the woman is shown, there is this kind of a tendency to linger the camera along the body of the woman. This is number 1. The second is that of the male characters within the film's cinematic representation, meaning the way in which the male characters within the cinema look at the female character. And finally, you have the gaze of the spectator, that is the audience, who are looking at the image. So these are the 3 ways in which the gaze, which is primarily a male gaze, all right, which is there in the in narrative cinema. And this is what Mulvey has to say. She says, I'm presenting, is the screen available?
Yes, it is.
So in a world ordered by sexual imbalance, the pleasure in looking has been split between the active male. The male is the active looker, the person who is looking, all right, and the passive female who is being looked at. This determining male gaze projects his fantasy on the female figure. So the male gaze projects his fantasy on the female figure, and this projection of the fantasy, my argument is that this projection of that fantasy of the male gaze leads to these popularity of these item numbers, okay, which is styled according to the male fantasy. Okay, so as a resistance to this, I would like to just bring in, before I wrap up, I think I'm taking too much of time, but I wanted to talk about advertisements, but that would not be possible. But just the last bit about the idea of the beauty myth. This is a book that was written in 1990 by Naomi Wolf. Okay. Can I just stop? Yes. By Naomi Wolf, where she says that women in present times have been able to at least break a lot of glass barriers, right? They have been able to do that. But there is a problem here. And the problem is that the idea of the female beauty is something that has been socially constructed by the male. And women have not been able to break that. That is the last ceiling for women to break. The idea of female beauty as constructed by the male, as constructed by the cosmetic industry, which is again a corporate world, which is a male world. Okay, so the whole idea of beauty myth is something that Laura Mulvey talks about. Now you see, so right from 58 to 2010, you see sexuality has come in a very big way in from say 90s onwards, right? And this very insidious patriarchal ideology has steeped almost every representation of women. Yes, I have shown you some of the most popular Bollywood songs of the old generation, but you see the insidious way in which the patriarchal ideology is pumped into the heads of the people. They do not even realize how it impacts their thinking. Okay, so it caters basically to the male fantasy of the female figure, right? Of either number one, passive femininity, or the female figure as the worshipper, all right, or as a supplicant, or in other films, you know, this is something I couldn't take up, the idea of the no is not a no, all right, the no is a disguised yes. If you remember films like Dar by Shah Rukh, okay, where he plays a psychotic stalker, she goes on to say, "Tu haan kar ya na kar, tu hai meri kiran." So whether you say yes or no is immaterial, right? We understand that whatever you say, it is a yes because I want you. Okay, so not just in films, even in advertisements, the same thing is there, right? These are all social scripts, whether it is films or whether it's advertisements, all of these are social scripts, and we internalize these things without even realizing it. Okay, like take for instance in advertisements like kitchen appliances, Nirma, detergent, meat masala, kachi ghani mustard oil. What do you find there? All of them are women, all right? And they are all striving for the appreciation of the men, whether it is the husband, whether it is the son, whether it is the patriarch in the family, the grandfather. Okay, so in the domestic space you see that. So these images, this circulation of these images create consent. You know, going back to what I was talking about, the creation of consent. Similarly, in the office space, okay, you will find very smart, very good-looking women, all right, but all of them are dressed very well, but most of them are secretaries. Okay, how many decision makers do we find in the advertisements in the office space as women? All right, how many do we find? Please reflect and see. I mean, we are always bombarded by advertisements. Okay, similarly in the family investment, say buying a home, these, you know, crucial family decisions. All right, these crucial family decisions, you will find a lot of advertisements. I could have shown it to you if there were more time, but it is always the man gifts, please mark the word, gifts the house. You know, they have taken a loan, this, that, whatever, but the man gifts the house to the woman, and the woman is awed. The woman is enthralled, so happy that she has found a husband who is such a caring protector. All right, look at the advertisements for cars. How many women do you find in the driving seat? Right, mostly it is, I mean, almost in 99%. There is just one advertisement which has come out recently, but mostly it's all men. If there are women in the advertisement of a car, I can tell you with 90% certainty that these women will be hanging all over the car, but never on the driving seat. The woman will be hanging all over the car in all kinds of skimpy outfits. That is once again the eroticization of the woman. Okay, but it is not to say that things are not changing. Okay, and I would just like to give you this last clip, which is this Airtel advertisement, and it shows. With that, I will end up this lecture. It shows this old father, and he is there. He seems to have come to his married daughter's house, and he sees the daughter is multitasking. She is taking care of the child's homework. She is making tea and giving it to her husband, who is watching TV. And she has also got a call from her office, and she's telling that she's going to send the email off in around 5 minutes. She's asking whoever is there in the office to give her 5 minutes. And the father looks at his, ladli, the child that he had raised, and says that I am so proud of you. And then he says, I am sorry as well. Because when you were growing up, I never taught you to think that all these work is a shared work. It's a shared domain. All right. And how could I teach you? The father is saying, because even I did not do it. I never helped your mother. So it is quite possible that your husband also never saw his father helping his mother. But I am going to change. And in the next scene, we see him, he has come back home, and he says, maybe I cannot be the king of the kitchen, but I can at least help out with the laundry. All right. So it's a very interesting kind of a video. So I will share this with you. Let's hope you can watch it. Just a minute. Yes, this just shows how things are changing. Indeed, if I had to take up changing mindsets, that would require almost another hour. But then this is, on a hopeful note, I will try to end my lecture. This advertisement is called Share the Load. Someone please tell me if it is visible or not. Is it visible?
Yes, it is.
Oh, thank you.
I'm so proud. सॉरी कि ये सब तुमने सॉरी कि जब तुम घर में थी तुमने ये नहीं कहा कि ये सिर्फ तुम्हारे हस्बैंड का और कहता है कैसे मैंने भी तो कभी तुम्हारी मम्मी की तुमने जो देखा तुम्हारे हस्बैंड ने भी बचपन में यही देखा घर घर खेलते वक्त टीवी देखने की या न्यूज़पेपर पढ़ने की एक्टिंग करता जैसे कोई छोटी सी चाय उसके डैड की तरफ से तुम्हारे डैड की तरफ से और हर उस डैड की तरफ से जिसने कई कई सालों से गलत एग्जाम पास किया और हमें इस सॉरी के साथ मैं अपनी तरफ से छोटी सी कोशिश करूं कि घर के काम किचन का किंग ना बन पाऊं तो कम से कम लॉन्ड्री में तो हाथ बटाऊं
All right. So he asks apologies from his daughter, from all fathers who have brought up their children in not the right way. And with that hopeful note, he says, Abhi bhi der nahi hui. So let's hope that we shall be able to, demystify the way in which gender operates in our daily lives. In the advertisements we see, in the films that we see, in the books that we read, in the way society operates. That is a very important thing, and that is what is so important for a woman's cell to do, to create that awareness. All right. So I think I've taken up a lot of your time, and with apologies from my side, I would like to end my lecture. Thank you for being such patient and wonderful listeners. I am ready for any interaction, if at all you want any interaction, that is okay, but I am here. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Roy, for this really wonderful lecture. And we know that this issue, this topic is such a huge one that it cannot be covered in a 30-minute lecture. And we know that. I think all of us know that. So thank you once again. Now I would request the participants to let us know if there are any queries they would like to get clarified from Dr. Roy, or whether you have any observation that you want to share with all of us. You can unmute yourself and speak, or you can also write in the chat box.
It need not be a question. You can always put in your observation, something that came to your mind as I was talking. All right. We are all open to listening to that, right? That is very important.
True. So we can have observations as well. So do you have any participants? And even if there are any queries or observations later, you all have our email IDs, so you can also mail us the queries or the issues that you want to get clarified on, or we can send those queries to Dr. Pothik Roy and get the answer to you through mail only. So we can do that also. So I think it can be considered as a success of the speaker here today that you actually presented the topic in such a way that I don't think that any query is possible after that. So you possibly covered each and every angle of this issue. So I think that is the reason here we have that there are no queries coming as such. So if there are any queries later, we can address them as I have
Sure.
said.
Yeah. You could send it to my mail.
Yes, we can do that. Okay. And now I would like to invite Madhushree Roy, Assistant Professor in Geography, Maynaguri College, the convener of Prevention of Sexual Harassment Cell, who is the co-convener of this lecture series as well, to deliver the vote of thanks on behalf of the organizing committee of this lecture series. Madhushree, are you there?
Yes, ma'am. Am I audible?
Yes, Madhushree, you are audible. Please go on.
Okay. Good afternoon, sir. On the behalf of the organizing committee of this lecture series at national level on the status of Indian women, I would like to express our immense gratitude to Dr. Pratik Roy, Assistant Professor in English, St. Joseph College, Darjeeling, for acting as the invited speaker for today's session. Thank you for your amazing lecture, discussion, and excellent presentation. And thank you for facilitating such a positive learning environment. And we really enjoy it a lot. A big note of thanks to our college students who have prepared the introductory slides for this lecture series. And of course, finally, I would like to thank the person who made this program successful, our dear colleagues, lovely students, and all the enthusiastic participants from different parts of the country who have managed time for this program. Thank you for being with us and thank you for your kind cooperation. Parmita ma'am, over to you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Madhushree, for this beautiful vote of thanks. And so now we have come to the end of this beautiful session today. We will meet again tomorrow at 3:45 p.m. for the last session in this lecture series. Till then, take care, stay home, stay safe. And now let us leave the platform, all of us. Thank you. Thank you once again.
Thank you. Thank you. And the pleasure was all mine being with you all. Thank you very much.
Okay.